I believe that there are two matters: legislation and the implementation of legislation. In some countries, the legislation is good. However, the authorities don't always implement the legislation that exists. So it's important for us to have proper and adequate laws against hate crime and against racism, and also for the authorities in our countries to have the determination to guarantee that the law of the land will be upheld. In Great Britain, one of the very first moves of Prime Minister David Cameron has taken place today after his recent re-election, which is to state his intent to confront extremism. And we obviously welcome this enormously. We're still waiting to hear the exact details with regard to what he is proposing. But of course, our community welcomes his resolve and the resolve of his new government to confront extremism to the best of our ability. And as has been suggested before, it's important for countries to act in their own right, and also wherever possible, what can be done together within Europe will strengthen our situation.
Of course, to have a dialogue, you need you need two people. You cannot have a monologue as a dialogue, not a dialogue as a monologue. However, I feel that a great part of the Muslim community living today in Europe represent people who emigrated to these shores in order to rebuild their lives, to live better lives, and to lead normal lives. And what happened is that the agenda were hijacked by extremists. Why? How? Is it because of too liberal immigration policy? Is it because of the internet? There are many answers to that. We, in the Conference of European Rabbis, have issued in January a manifesto against religious extremism, which is published also on our website. You can look it up at our old website is confeurorabbis.org, or our new website is rabbiscer.org. Is the manifesto of basically coming forward with three proposals. A, check where the money comes from. That money should not come from sources which encourage terror. And some countries in Europe already acted on our suggestions. For example, Austria's passed laws which limits funding coming from outside of Europe. Two, it is very important that the religious leadership in Europe, and we're not talking only about Muslims, we're talking about everybody, should be European, should have European values of pluralism, of living together, and understanding the values of freedom and and human rights. And those religious leaders who are being trained outside of Europe should be trained only in institutions which are certified. I don't know yet how, by whom, in a European context, that these are not institutions which lead to extremism.
Bridges are always more strong than walls. And there is people, they want just to build walls. In the European Conference of Rabbis, we want to build bridges. And of course, you know, the sentence of Rabbi Nachman of Braslav, Kol haolam kulo gesher tsar meod. All the world is a smile bridge. And the most important is not to be afraid.
We're in the Vatican, met with Pope Francis. We mentioned that that our support, sympathy, and prayers for the Christians who live in the Middle East. And the good news is that there's a tranquil island in the middle of the Middle East, which is called Israel, where Christians have full equal rights, freedom of religion, and their lives are secure. Now, Jews in Europe would have been in the same situations as Christians in the Middle East if the governments of Europe would not have done everything possible to protect the Jewish community. And that's the reason we gave the Lord Jacobowitz Prize for European Jewry to Prime Minister Manuel Valls, thanking the French government for their support, for doing what is needed in order to protect the Jewish minority. And it's not nice to go into a synagogue and seeing 5 soldiers with submachine guns and policemen standing, but it's much nicer than the alternative.
The current situation in Europe is well known, and I don't need to spell it out. Together with that, we are blessed to have numerous friends in Europe, friends in government, friends in all high places of responsibility. During the course of this conference, we have been blessed to come across national representatives, representatives of the European Union who are expressing full solidarity with the Jewish people. Indeed, in the UK, we know that our Jewish community has the full support of our government, and whether it's the government or the opposition parties, all are absolutely united in striving to ensure that our rights as a Jewish community will be upheld when it comes to shchita, milah, and the security for our community. We are also blessed within our communities, as I said earlier, to have a wonderful success story with regard to the expansion of facilities and to have a very healthy community fabric. In the UK, we know that the threat against the Jews is seen by our country as a threat against all of society, and that is why the attack against anti-Semitism is not one which is left to the Jewish community, but rather is undertaken by the government on behalf of the people. We have the all-party parliamentary group against anti-Semitism and many other bodies. And I think that within a troubling and challenging context, there is a lot of comfort that we can draw. And thankfully, there are many communities in Europe which are in a strong state.